Good morning, good morning, good morning. My name is Tracy Brown. I want to welcome you to the Sunday morning Science of Mind class at CSLDallas, where every Sunday we open the Science of Mind textbook to the next page, not to any random page. We start at the beginning and we go page by page, section by section, and we are now in the general summary, which just basically means that Ernest Holmes wrote about 388 pages of content and then said, maybe I ought to summarize it. And in about 30, 40 pages, he summarizes most of the key points. So we are getting near the end of the general summary, and we are going to start today on, or focus mostly today on page 421. So if you have a Science of Mind textbook handy, then feel free to follow along, but there's no need to have the textbook because we're going to go paragraph by paragraph. So what's happening in this general summary at this point is Ernest Holmes has already talked about and reviewed the basic principles so that we're aware of them and are reminded of them. And then in the middle of this chapter, he really focused on the practical application of those principles. And in this last section, he has been focusing on when you really are living the principles, when you embody them, you have the experiences of a mystic, not some mysterious psychic phenomenon, but a mystical knowing or embodiment of spiritual law and principle. And so at the bottom of page 420, he goes into page 421 with this. By cosmic consciousness, we mean one's consciousness of one's unity with the whole, that we know each other, we know that we are each a part of the whole, and that's conscious that we know and feel and believe in this unity. That unity means I am one with spirit. Oh. And if you're not reading along, you don't know where I stopped quoting Ernest Holmes and where I was just explaining. So I'm going to go back to Ernest Holmes. Repeating, by cosmic consciousness, we mean one's consciousness of one's unity with the whole. This is not a mystery, however, but the self-knowingness of God through the human. Illumination will come as humanity more and more realizes their unity with the whole, and as one constantly endeavors to let the truth operate through himself, herself. The great mystics, like Jesus, have taught that as we consciously enter into the one enters into and then becomes us. While sensing this unity, the mystics have also sensed the individualization of being and the individuality of humanity as a divine reality. In flashes of illumination, the inspired have seen into the very center of reality. They have been convinced of immortality now. They have been convinced of God as personal to the individual. They have been convinced of the inevitable overcoming of all evil by good in such degree as we become conscious of God, evil disappears. All right, so I was hesitating, debating whether to add that third paragraph or not, but I'm glad I did. So I'm going to talk about these three paragraphs a little bit. And while I'm doing that, I want you to be thinking about, when have you had that awareness or understanding? Or if it doesn't make sense, like, what questions do you have? Because in about 5 minutes, I'm going to ask Ryan to this open this up into a conversation and not just me talking to you. So in this first paragraph, by cosmic consciousness, we mean one's consciousness of unity with the whole. And unity sometimes gets misunderstood or misinterpreted, because in our human thinking, we think of unity as bringing separate things together. But from a spiritual perspective, the absolute and the creation is the creation of unity. Everything has been created to fit together, to work together, to support each other, and on so many levels. Like in our human body, there's the unity of all the organs and systems, and circulation, and the system of elimination, and your skin cells growing, and all of that works in unity, but we think of it as a verb versus a state of being. But in our body, that's just the way we have been created. In the world of humanity, right? If we believe there's no mistake that people have been created as unique individuals, the unity is all of the different kinds of people representing humanity. In a forest, you have trees, but you have moss, and you have animals, and you have the climate all working together. But they're not seeing themselves as separate. They are simply being what they've been created to be, and it works together. So when Ernest Holmes reminds us that one's consciousness, cosmic consciousness, means that we have a conscious awareness of our unity with all of life, not just all of our neighborhood or all of our family, but all of life. That's cosmic consciousness. And he also describes it, which is the phrase that initially worked better for me, was he describes it as the self-knowingness of God through the human, or through mankind. That, oh, I can know myself. I can know myself as an entity, but I'm still part of the whole. In that second paragraph, he reminds us that the great mystics like Jesus have taught that as we consciously enter into that unity, the one source enters into and becomes us. Oh my goodness, I could not have planned this, but today's talk is so much related to these two paragraphs. And I guess there was a one mind experience happening, because this entire idea that as I am consciously entering into, I'm consciously partnering with, I'm consciously recognizing spirit, I am actually recognizing that spirit is operating in, as, and through me, and that there really is no separation. Even though I am a very unique individual, I'm different from Jerry, and I'm different from Catherine, and I'm different from Ryan, even though we have the same last name. I'm different from everyone online. I am still in the unity, or in unity with the one. So one comment about the third paragraph, and then we're going to go to your comments, your questions, and your examples. In flashes of illumination, the mystics or someone having a mystical life have seen into the very center of reality. They have been convinced of immortality now, of God as personal to the individual, and the inevitable overcoming of all evil by good. Important sentence. In such degree as we become conscious of God, evil disappears. As we become more conscious of God, we recognize there is no evil, because that would mean there would be two powers, two sources of light, and there's only one. So this is all about the mystical experience, and that we all have access to that mystical experience, and that we all have both our individuality and our oneness or unity with the creator and the source of all life. So let's see where we go from that. Ryan.
Well, good morning, everybody. Hi, hello to everybody here in the room.
Hi,
as I'm waving my
Ryan.
hand to you. Hello to everybody online too via Zoom. I'm waving my hand to you if you don't see me. They won't. But all of those who are on Facebook Live, I want to say hello to you, because we have a lot of people from all over the world, and I really get inspired when they tell me where they're watching us from. We've got a lot of East Coasters on here with us today, which is just great. So as Tracy was talking about questions and comments, I want to remind you that this is an engaging discussion, not just a soulful think, right? So we want to hear from you. And for those who are here with us in the room, let's just make sure your arms are working okay today. So lift your right arm. This is my left. Lift your left arm and wave it all around. Make sure you're alive and you're here with us today. And for those who are watching us on Zoom, let's flex your hand muscles. So hit that raise your hand icon and let's see how many people we can have raise their hands here with us today. Awesome. See a bunch of people doing that. Great. And as you're wanting to come into the room, you'll hit that raise your hand icon and I can bring you in. Or you can also put it inside of the questions and comments field, and I'll pull it out from there. And the same goes true for those who are watching us on Facebook Live. Make sure to check in, tell us where you're watching from and what your question and comment is, and I'll bring that into the room as well. And for those who are in the comments, I keep those anonymous, so that way we have a safe container of spiritual growth. So with all that being said, do we have anybody here in the room who'd like to
comment,
add
question,
to the conversation?
Example?
All right.
We are bringing a microphone up here.
How can I forget? We have the iconic Richard in the room with the magic baton. Make sure to say your name so everybody online can hear you as well.
I'm Willie. Good morning. It was a real eye-opener for me when I thought through that whole thing about, like you said, about the body. And I think of us as cells in the body of God.
Ooh.
Just like we have cells in our body that work together to create the best that we can be, we have to work together with each other to express God fully.
I love that. And I love that you added fully, because if we use the body as a framework, we know that sometimes there are cells in our bodies that are not cooperating with other cells in our bodies. And it doesn't mean we don't exist. It doesn't mean that we can't go to work or have a picnic with our family or do whatever we want to do. It may limit some of the things that we do. It may make some of the things we want to do challenging to accomplish. But I love that, right? Because if we're not cooperating with other life, it doesn't mean that God doesn't exist.
No, it just means that God doesn't exist fully and completely and to the best level that it can.
Right. In our experience, because God is all in everything, but that one sentence in here about consciously, that we consciously can't find, only 3 paragraphs, and I can't find it because my brain is thinking so much about what I want to say. But that we can only know God as much as we consciously believe and consciously unite. And throughout the textbook, Ernest Holmes reminds us that it is our conscious awareness. We don't really change God, but we do change the condition or the experience of God. I like it.
And shout out to all the people over there in Poland and Switzerland tuning in.
Poland and
They're
Switzerland
8 hours
in the
ahead of us.
house.
You guys are grateful that you're joining us. Do we have anybody else here in
Yes,
the room
we
who'd like
do.
to share? Okay, great. Please say your name.
Hi, I'm Nicole. So I would love to hear a word from you on how to cope with discordance or perceived discordance, since everything is in unity and unity is inevitable. One example that I can give is when everyone is asked to gather around in a circle or to position their chairs in a circle, and there's that one person who's messing the circle up. Are you not paying attention to your surroundings? You get out of yourself and see the way you fit into the rest of the world and get into the circle. A lot of times I'm realizing, especially through Science of Mind, that my frustration with this situation is very much a reflection of my frustration with myself. And it's very much me recognizing all of the times in my life when I am discordant and unaware of this discordance. But yet, applying the principles of Science of Mind, it's really helping me be more forgiving of myself and more forgiving of others, and seeing the beautiful ways that this perceived discordance actually is delivering a very important message, and there is profound unity in that. So what are some ways that you kind of cope with those things in your life?
I love it when someone gives enough information with their question that they answer the question themselves. Because what you described about how you have shifted your understanding of what's going on as you are expanding is really the quote unquote the answer. So there are several parts of this. One part is sometimes what we perceive to be discord is actually the natural expression of life. I'm going to take it away from human beings for a moment and go to nature, go to a garden, go to your yard if you plant flowers or vegetables or anything. And you planted a certain thing right here in this patch. And when things start coming up, something very different comes up than what you planted. You did not plant that there. What is it doing here? I can see that as discord. It's messing up my plan. I wanted all roses right here. What is this tulip doing here? I wanted all basil here and okra here. And what is this tomato doing here? I didn't do that. And often when we think something is out of order, it is because our attention is on me, on ourselves, on controlling what is happening. I'm gonna go back to people because I love that you use the example. You give an instruction to a group of people and it's something simple. It's like sit in a circle, stand in a circle so we can, have this conversation. And someone is outside of the circle, or the circle's not symmetrical because they're standing back or they stand over here. Or right, in either way, it's like it's not how I pictured it. When I am recognizing it's not how I wanted, my first thing to do is to ask, how important is that, what I wanted or what I perceived? How important is that to achieving the goal? Like, where am I going? Because we forget to keep our eye on our vision. We forget to keep our eye on the desired outcome and get distracted by something in the middle. But I love your example. It's Nicole, right? Yeah, I love your example, Nicole, because as many people know, I do a lot of speaking, a lot of training. And so when I give a group an instruction to get in a circle, I have a reason for that. And when Nicole gets out of the circle, then I'm going, you're messing up my plan. Yeah. So bringing this back to, that's the first thing. Am I just seeing it as discord because it's not what I want? Am I able, number two, am I able to see that this person is simply expressing something that's important to them in a way that's important to them that does not will not have a negative effect on achieving the goal? So I have to get beyond me individually and look at the bigger goal. And then number three, depending on what my answer is to that, number three, it's like from a spiritual perspective. From a spiritual perspective, if they are equally an example of God, and I am, as I am, is this something that's going to harm someone? Can I see what is good from their perspective? Can I ask a question? I am requiring myself to get out of judgment and to make any decision or choice from a place of love and unity. And we are not trained to do that from it as human beings. We often have been trained and socialized to judge. And we don't realize we're the ones creating the discord, not the other person. I'm gonna stop there because I could go for 15 minutes. 3 other things are in my mind to say about that. So Ryan, do we have anybody online?
Yes, I'm going to go ahead and poll as you're moving your shirt over your microphone. We want to just uncover that, make sure it's not rubbing up against it. Anybody here on Zoom like to share a question, comment, thought before we move on into the next part of the chapter? Looks like everybody's eager to hear some more, Tracy.
I love it. So let's finish out this page 421. In the general summary, third full paragraph, humanity is universal on the subjective side of life, and in this way is connected with the subjectivity of all with whom he is in harmonious vibration. That's a lot. If you're just hearing it, I'm reading it again. Man is universal on the subjective side of life, and in this way is connected with the subjectivity of all with whom he is in harmonious vibration. Mental suggestion operates through the subjective mind and a silent influence is always going on through this avenue in the form of race suggestion. A silent communication takes place at all times between friends on the subjective side of life. When it comes to the surface, when one receives a clear impression of thought without the use of words, it is called mental telepathy. So this paragraph, Ernest Holmes does a couple of things. One, he reminds us that what we experience in life is the effect of our mental thought. He reminds us that it is subjective, and the way that Holmes uses subjective, in my mind, I always will say he means that our experience is subject to the intention we set, the choice we make. So subjective is different from the absolute nature of spirit, of spiritual law. Subjective means it's been influenced by the thought. So for those of you who've been around a while or have studied science of mind a while, the correlation would be the law, spiritual law, is subject to, right, the intent that we set. So he's reminding us that there is subjectivity, and that he uses this phrase, all who are in harmonious vibration. So when I find myself in harmonious vibration, living the same principles, having a lot of the same experiences, then it may seem like things just automatically happen, or that I know things. And he dabbles here in this and the next paragraph, just really briefly, on mental telepathy. In science of mind, we don't spend a lot of time talking about psychic occurrences, but we're very clear about the distinction between things that we cannot explain, that have been influenced by our own thoughts, and things that we cannot explain that are the demonstration of spiritual law in action. It's not a human idea saying this must happen. So he just begins to dabble in that, and he only mentions it in the summary in this and the next paragraph, because the focus in this section of the general summary is all about the mystical experience. The mystical experience, meaning I am embodying spiritual law and I am practicing it. I'm living it. Which, you know, my comment is, that's why we're called Centers for Spiritual Living, not just Centers for Spiritual Thinking or Centers for Spiritual Ideas. Centers for Spiritual Living, which we are affiliated with here at CSLDallas, is designed to help us live these spiritual principles and have the experience of life from that spiritual place. Okay, I want to stop. Ryan.
All right. Connie, do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and join the conversation?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. And I am
A little bit louder, Connie, please.
okay. Can you hear me better now? Okay, thanks.
Yes.
I'll up my voice a little. Yeah. You talked about what we inherit, I guess, from our parents. And sometimes it can be negative, and I definitely did. My parents were very, very, very polarized about politics. They were right, and the guys that were on the other side were wrong. They were good, and the other guys were bad. They happened to be very, very strong left-wing Democrats. They went so far as to become, they were members of the American Communist Party when they were at UCLA. I mean, it was really far out. And so my two brothers and I became very polarized. But I did not become polarized about politics. I can be good friends with anybody along the political spectrum, and it doesn't matter to me. Sometimes I just say, let's talk about something else. But, most of the time I can be fine. But I did become very polarized about natural health. And what's been helping me so much at CSL is stepping away from telling people what to do and saying, I'm right, I know, you're wrong, you don't know. People don't like to be told what to do, I've discovered. And what I do is I ask them if they would like a suggestion. If they say no, I back off, I don't push it. And if they say yes, I don't say you should. In other words, I don't should on people, excuse me, but I just say this is what I do, and it might be helpful. But this has been so good for me to be here and make these changes, and I'm in process. It is a matter of practice.
We are all in process, and we have the intention to practice. And most days I do, but there are some days every now and then, that's the human part of us, right? Depending on what's going on. So Connie, thank you for that. It's really beautiful, one, for you to see and be able to be aware of your own growth and expansion in understanding and using the principles. Two, it's really helpful of the reminder that one of the things we teach is there's no need for us to should on other people, because every person is having their own experience and each one of us is responsible for the experience we have. We're not responsible for everything that happens in our lives, but we are responsible for how we respond to what happens in our lives. And our options include being very conscious and aware of the spiritual principles that we've learned and getting in alignment with spiritual law so that our lives can unfold in a way that delivers a life that we love and a world that works for everyone. Some of you are like, oh, look at her getting that phrase in, right? CSL vision. And it's because I believe that, and because I do my best to live it, that it just automatically comes to mind. It's not some like extra thing to do. And so we want to integrate all of that as we are moving into this opportunity to embody the principles. And that's really where we're focusing today. Ryan.
Yes, that's a great summary of it. So Anita, do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and join the conversation?
Hey, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I was listening to you reading that last paragraph there, and talking about the subjective mind. And it just, kind of floated through my mind that, what my job in life is to unite with the one mind, even at the time that I am, how do I want to say, being bombarded by all of the things that are in that subjective mind, right? So thinking just now of be of the one mind, don't be of the world, right? So the subjective being of the world, all the thoughts that were ever thought, right? And my job is to weed out what is the truth and stick with that. And so, that's just how I shape my life, is, to align with spirit and not, as best I can as a human, fall trapped to that subjectivity.
Yes, thank you for that. And what you just reminded me of was, it's probably important to say, when we are looking at the human experience and we're talking about subjective mind, and we're talking about our own human subjective mind, all the things that exist in it that we're reacting to, as Anita just said, what we are doing when we are using our principles is that we are elevating ourselves, or whatever imagery works. I'm stepping over here, but I'm getting into and tapping into the universal subjective mind, the one mind, the wholeness that has everything that could ever be known in it. My subjective mind is heavily influenced by what I've experienced in my life, what I've been socialized to believe, what we say our laws and regulations are, the habits my family had that got ingrained in me, the cultural things that are going on in my neighborhood, my community, or the world. That's kind of the human subjective mind. And if I only live within that, I am going to shrink my life down, and I could be comfortable, but I won't be as expanded, or I could be in a lot of pain. A lot of our pain and fear comes from being in the human subjective mind. But when we do what Anita said, do the work of saying, wait a minute, what's absolutely true? How did spirit invent or create life to be? What is it that is possible, even though I'm not experiencing it now? What are the qualities or attributes of God that I want to experience, embody, or model in my life? Then I move out of this subjective mind, humanity, and expand into the divinity, which is probably a good time to remind me and everybody else, we are both human and divine at the same time. It's not like we are human only, right? And then we, I don't know, wait till we die and become divine, or that we can be 100% in our divinity when we are in this human body having a human experience. So we are both, but it takes conscious, very first paragraph from today, conscious unity with the whole, conscious choice to live into what we know about spiritual truth. And it's not always easy, but that's why we, read, that's why we pray, that's why we use our spiritual practices, that's why we meditate, to get beyond what's going on in the physical. That's why we do affirmations. That's why we do all of our spiritual practices, to remind ourselves that the human experience we are having is not the only experience we can have. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Can I say something?
That's what it means to think outside the box.
That's what it means to think outside the box, Willie says. Well, yes, because the box is the box we've created. Right. When Spirit created each one of us, there was no box. There was, hey, you've got all these qualities, and now go forth, make choices, create a life that you will love. And we can do that. But we're the ones who set the limitations, which is the box. And sometimes we have boxes that we get really comfortable in. I don't know, maybe it's just me. It's like, oh, this is working. Oh, yeah. You know, or this year I made enough money. Oh, yeah, that's comfortable. Or, you know, this relationship is going really well. It's still a box. Boxes aren't necessarily negative or harmful or painful or hurtful. They're just, when we say this is it, I don't go beyond that. That's a whole nother talk too, isn't it?
Yeah.
Get out of the box. Get out of the box. Maybe that'll be a November talk. Okay, so we're gonna wind it down for this week. I do want to bring your attention, whether you were in the room or whether you are virtual, to the amazing art that is surrounding me. I love that we do class in this space where we change the artist every month. And our artist of the month for August 2022 is Cassie Shank. And if you are here in the room, please be sure to check out Cassie's art this week and next week, and purchase some if you're so inclined.
I was going to mention with that too, Tracy, the artist will be here next week. She just had a baby. So she will be here next week to talk about the inspiration behind her artwork. So if you're here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, please come and join us for that.
Yes, and she does commission work as well. So this, in about 30 minutes, join us online or in person for our Sunday celebration. This theme this month is Reimagine Faith. And today we're going to be talking about living, what it's like to live in answered prayer, and that our faith is demonstrating that. And if in the room we have anybody who is here for the first or second time and you want more information about us, Rhonda is right here in the room with some welcome packets and tote bags and a gift and information for you. So just grab her on your way out. That's all for this week. See you next Sunday at 9:15 a.m. Central Time right here for the Science of Mind class.